Hello, everyone. Today, you will hear an interesting story. Nuked my wife's lover. TLDR. My ex cheated on me and got engaged while she was still married to me. The new hubby was an abusive Dutchbag who worked in a shady business where people invested in oil wells. I found out he was on probation for felony coke possession and posted the arrest report and court records online. His firm imploded. Now he is unemployed. He also was very abusive to my ex and cheated on her. She finally left him, but also still pays his bills, which means she is so broke she has to sell plasma. A little over a decade ago, my then wife decided to get a divorce. We had 2 kids, 13 meters, and 6F, and even though our sex life was non-existent, I really didn't want to get divorced and break up the family. It turned out that the reason she had killed off our sex life was that she had been cheating on me for quite a while. She had planned everything out years in advance and had set it up so that the divorce would be final at the same time she finished up the last semester of her master's degree. Then she was going to take the kids and move to Dallas to live with her fiancé. Even showed me the engagement ring. Long story short, you could say the divorce was ugly in much the same way you could say the bombing of Hiroshima left the place rather messy. When the smoke cleared, I wound up with custody of the kids, so she literally packed up a U-Haul and drove off to Dallas to move in with her fiancé. Then she stopped paying child support. I had to get the state attorney general's office to sue her to get her to pay up. Since she had gone ahead and moved to Dallas, she had very little contact with the kids. And when they did go to her place, they hated it. A new hubby, we called him the stepdad, had no interest in the kids other than to bully them. It wasn't physical, but it was still bullying. For example, when my son was 15, he wanted to go to a horror movie convention in Dallas. I couldn't afford to go with him, but I scraped up enough money so he could go. The ex said she would pick him up at the airport, drive him to the convention, take care of him while he was in Dallas, make sure he had a good time, etc. So I got him a plane ticket and a 3-day convention pass. Instead of taking him to they used him to help them move all weekend. By the time he got to the convention, it was Sunday afternoon and everything was shut down and everyone was going home. The stepdad was a huge asshole and was constantly making things as hard as he could for both me and the kids simply because he could. This is just one example. He also occasionally beat the crap out of my ex, but that is another story. It is important to note here what the stepdad did for a living. He and a couple of other partners ran a small business, a scam that solicited people to invest in oil wells. They ran a call center. Some of his disgruntled employees posted online about this, and cold called folks to talk them into investing. They would then get this money together, and they were supposed to use it to buy old oil wells, work the well to get it producing again, and the investors all got a share of proceeds. I know that they actually did do this on a couple of occasions. They had pictures of the well on the firm webpage, but how much of the investors' money was actually invested and how much went towards the stepdad's rented Mercedes and suits and such I don't know. I know that stepdad and my ex went to a lot of rock concerts and pro football games. I also know that at least one of his partners was apparently honest. More on that later. And the firm was big enough they hired my ex to work there at least part-time. And they had a couple of office assistants too. I had spent some time in the military and worked briefly with law enforcement, so I pulled every string I could and got as much background on the stepdad as I could. It turned out that he was on probation for felony cocaine possession and for assaulting a cop. Apparently, he had stopped off at a truck stop to pick up some party supplies for a Super Bowl party, and he bought the drugs from an undercover cop. Nobody knew this, not the ex. She was shocked when I told her, not his partners, certainly not the people he was trying to get to invest in his all-well deals. Eventually, I posted his arrest report online. The whole thing except Stephouse SSN. I was very careful not to add or embellish anything because when it comes to slander, truth is a defense. As long as I only posted the truth, i.e. the complete arrest report along with arrest number, records numbers, etc., and his plea bargain deal, it wouldn't be legally actionable. Court records are public documents. I also said that this was only one side of the story and that people should contact him to find out his side, so I posted all his contact information including where he worked and the firm website and the firm phone number, and I think his home address in the interest of fairness so people could get his side of the story. But I did not dock him or anything like that, not even once. Even though he lacked the legal certifications and background checks required for someone who worked doing investments, I figured his partners could find that out for themselves if they decided to check. I don't know the details of what happened next, but I do know that the ex called me up a couple of weeks later and literally begged me to take my post down. I politely refused. I do know that his firm vanished, website gone, phones disconnected, emails bounced. Apparently, people are reluctant to invest their life savings with an unlicensed drug felon. Who knew? The kids said that the ex and the stepdads had to move into a hotel for a while. So what happened to the house they were renting? I don't know. Finally, they moved back to our city and stepdad got a job working for a buddy's exotic car company. Customers would come into the company and request a particular kind of car, and he had to go search the internet to find a matching one that was for sale. I don't think it was a high-paying position. The ex went back to the job she had before the divorce, though, with another company, and she was the big breadwinner. I know that they were dodging creditors for a long time because I would occasionally get phone calls from bill collectors asking for my ex-wife. These guys always found me to be very cooperative. Since I dropped the kids off at their place for the visitation weekends, I knew exactly where they lived, what their phone numbers were, where the ex worked, everything. Then I would call her brother, my ex-brother-in-law, and tell him that his sister was in financial trouble again. I think he helped her out a few times. I once got a call from a bill collector that was out to repo the Harley the ex had bought step-douche. As a wedding present, I was able to tell him not just where they lived, but how to get up to the property unseen. There was a small drainage ditch that ran alongside, and that when I dropped off kids on Saturday mornings, stepped out normally had the garage door open while he did yard work. I don't know if the repo man used this information or not, but they did go from a 3-car plus a Harley family to a 1-car family over the course of a few months. Since they only had 1 car, stepped out, made the ex take the bus to work. Finally, my daughter was brave enough that she used her iPhone to record one of stepped out rage fits where he slapped around the ex-dash. I was able to take this to court and get a restraining order requiring him to be at least 500 feet away from my daughter at all times. This meant that the ex still had visitation, but that my daughter didn't have to go over to their house anymore. Eventually stepped out got fired from his job. He has real problems with authority figures, and he hasn't worked in like 5 years. The ex finally left him on top of abusing her. He was also cheating on her, but for some reason, nobody understands she still pays all his bills, which means she has to sell plasma to try and make ends meet while he hangs out at strip clubs, but that's not my problem. A couple years later, one of partners started up a new oil and gas firm and went to long lengths to get it certified by the Better Business Bureau, and every other look, we really are honest website he could find. So it seems likely he didn't know that stepped out was as slimy as he turned out to be. Dear listener,